I'm Muhammed, I'm Hamdan, and this is Nightline, the top stories. Government to make Malaysia a leader in the global halal market. Zahid's DNAA decision, PSC, to call current and former AG. And Raymond Goh laid to rest. Good morning. TV3's Nightline newscaster Muhammad Zaman Goh Abdullah, or prominently known as Raymond Goh, who died on Tuesday morning, has been laid to rest at the Bukit Kiara Muslim Cemetery. Goh passed away at the age of 62 at Asunta Hospital, Petaling Jaya at 10:43 a.m. after suffering a stroke on August 30th. Funeral prayers for Goh were held at the At-Taqwa Mosque in Taman Tun Dr. Ismail at 4 p.m. before he was laid to rest an hour later at the cemetery. Also present were Media Prima Berhad MPB Group Chairman Datuk Sri Dr. Syed Hussein Al-Junid and Media Prima Television Network CEO Nini Yusof, as well as News and Current Affairs Deputy Group Editor Azhari Muhyiddin. Syed Hussein also conveyed his condolences to Goh's family. Some 100 people, including Goh's family members and relatives, his friends, as well as his past and present TV3 colleagues, attended the funeral to pay their last respects to the beloved veteran news anchor. According to them, Goh will always be remembered not just as a great newscaster, but also as a friend to all.
Ini adalah satu kehilangan besar kepada Media Prima, walaupun beliau telah selangkah bersara daripada membaca berita, tapi beliau banyak menyumbang untuk membantu generasi baru ataupun pelapis-pelapis baru untuk mendidik dan mengajar kaedah-kaedah pembacaan berita. So kita di Media Prima sangat, terutama di NCA lah, News and Current Affairs, kita amat terasa kehilangan beliau lah.
I've known him for 15 years. Since hari kedua saya masuk kerja, so saya jumpa dengan dia. He was very humble, he was very down to earth. Dia tak pernah nak rasa diri hebat. He's a very good friend. For me, today I've lost a brother.
If you ask anyone, you takkan find anyone yang saying a bad thing about him, you know. Dia memang sangat tak kedekut dengan ilmu dia. He's a gentleman, he's a very nice person. Everyone akan, everyone, tak ada siapa yang tak suka dia. Ya.
Bahawa Raymond adalah seorang yang baik hati. Dia very jovial dan dia sentiasa nak buat orang comfortable. Serius, tetapi dalam keseriusan itu dia memang seorang yang ikhlas. Jadi kita akan merindui komen-komen beliau yang positif di TikTok dan di Instagram.
I have known Raymond Goh since 1992, and I left TV3 in the year 2000. And when I rejoined back TV3 as a part-time host for Money Matters, Raymond Goh was one of the first people that I met at Sri Pentas, and he joked with me and he said, "You know, Kelvin, it's nice to have you back here with us. When you left, I'm still here, and when you came back, also I'm still here." So the Malaysian media industry has lost an icon, a very well-known personality, and it is a great loss to the Malaysian media industry.
Arwah Raymond Goh ni, arwah Zaman Goh ni, pemergian beliau amat dirasailah dalam bidang penyiaran, khususnya dalam bidang pengacaraan, penyampaian berita kan.
Sangat mesra, terlalu banyak ilmu yang dikongsikan dengan kami ini menjadikan kami sangat selesa setiap kali bertemu dengan dia. Itu karakter dia, sangat merendah diri, mudah mesra dan juga sangat pemurah. Selalu berkongsi rezeki dengan kawan-kawan di pejabat. Jadi saya rasa kehilangan Muhammad Zaman Guh adalah satu kehilangan yang sangat besar, bukan sahaja kepada kita di TV3 tapi juga kepada industri penyiaran keseluruhannya.
The sad news of Goh's passing was announced by his wife, Farida Teh, in a statement earlier on Tuesday. Farida and her family also expressed their gratitude to the public for the love and strong support they received throughout the challenging period. Meanwhile, Yang di-Pertuan Agong Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa bin Shah and Raja Permaisuri Agong Tunku Aziza Aminah Maimunah Iskandaria offered their condolences to Goh's family following his heartbreaking demise. The King and Queen described the passing of the popular veteran newscaster as a big loss to the broadcast industry in the country. In a Facebook posting on Tuesday, Al-Sultan Abdullah and Tuanku Aziza expressed sadness and hope that Goh's family would stay strong during this challenging and sad moment. The King and Queen also prayed that his soul be blessed and placed among the righteous. In another social media post, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim also conveyed his condolences to Goh's family and prayed for the family to remain strong in facing this moment of grief. Anwar added that the renowned TV3 anchor will be sorely missed by the entire broadcast fraternity, and his deeds as well as contributions will always be remembered. Communications and Digital Minister Fahmi Fazil also paid tribute to Goh in a separate Facebook posting, describing him as a great broadcaster and master of ceremonies. Described by fans as the man with the golden voice, Raymond Goh was a well-recognized personality who started his broadcasting career in his 20s, first serving as a disc jockey in the early 1980s. His flair for the English language and friendly personality caught the attention of television station TV3, which offered him a job as a newscaster for its English news bulletin during that time. Goh's newscasting career on TV3 spanned 14 years, and he went on to host a radio show on Astro's Top Radio in the early 2000s. He later returned to TV3 in 2007 to anchor the Nightline Midnight English News Bulletin. The last time he went on air was on August 23rd. Aside from reading the news, the veteran broadcaster also lent his voice to various television advertisements and public service announcements. He also had conducted hosting workshops in English and Malay, as he was fluent in both languages. Goh also had hosted numerous international sports and current affairs shows on radio and television, and became a much sought-after master of ceremonies in various events. Malaysia aims to become the global leader of the halal market, which is estimated to reach $2.4 trillion by next year. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said all related departments and agencies will be coordinated under a cabinet committee to strengthen the aspects of certification and the country's halal industry.
Sebab itu saya tekankan sinergi di antara badan-badan ini, tidak kira kementerian, tidak kira jabatan, mesti diselaraskan. Kita ada target untuk industri halal bagi negara ini, dan semua jabatan berkaitan harus bersama bersatu.
Speaking at the launch of the Global Halal Summit 2023, Anwar stated that Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi will lead the Cabinet Committee on Promotion and Empowerment of Halal Certification. Anwar, who is also Finance Minister, noted that the halal issue is not only related to food and beverages, but also extends to other products such as pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, consumer goods, logistics, services, medical devices and contract manufacturing, where the halal and clean assessment granted can attract interest from non-Muslim countries. The Special Parliamentary Select Committee PSC on Human Rights, Election and Institutional Reform will summon newly appointed Attorney General Dato Ahmad Terudin Muhammad Saleh and his predecessor Tan Sri Idris Harun to explain the discharge not amounting to acquittal DNAA granted to Deputy Prime Minister Dato Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi in his corruption case involving Yayasan Akal Budi funds. This was confirmed by its chairman, Selayang MP William Leong Ji Kin, during the special meeting at the Dewan Rakyat on Tuesday.
Kita akan mengadakan prosiding, kita akan panggil kedua-dua peguam negara untuk prosiding untuk memberikan penjelasan. Kenyataan media telah dikeluarkan dan ini menjadi perkara orang awam boleh tahu dan kita akan bentangkan laporan selepas siasatan dibuat.
Leong said this after Arau MP Datuk Sri Shahidan Kasim raised the topic during the debate on the 12th Malaysia Plan Mid-Term Review 12 MP MTR earlier. The issue led to Kota Melaka MP Koo Poi Tiong to question Shahidan for not knowing the current update, despite him being a member of the committee as well. The decision to grant the DNAA on Ahmad Zahid had sparked controversy, with the opposition and certain quarters accusing the unity government of political interference in the matter, to which the Prime Minister has denied. Meanwhile, Dewan Rakyat Speaker Tan Sri Johari Abdul on Tuesday clarified that the opposition MPs will be allowed to speak on Ahmad Zahid's DNAA during the 6-day special sitting of the lower house. He promised to give the MP space to speak on the matter, although the motions filed by Shahidan and Machang MP, one Ahmad Faisal, one Ahmad Kamal, were rejected.
Baik, saya sebut semalam juga kepada Arau dan Machang, saya akan memberi ruang. Saya tahu ini adalah isu politik yang masyarakat juga nak tahu apa yang berlaku. Saya kata selepas Perdana Menteri membahaskan. Maksud selepas ini tak kata semalam, saya tak kata hari ini. Selepas ini maknanya you have 6 days. You have 6 days. Hari ini, besok, lusa, tulat. You can say out. Anda boleh bercakap lah. Saya tidak akan stop.
Under Standing Order 11.3, the Prime Minister can ask for a sitting of the Dewan Rakyat during an adjournment if the matter involves public interest, and the Speaker must oblige and call for one. The Prime Minister also has the authority to decide the order of the day. Moving on, former Second Finance Minister Datuk Sri Johari Abdul Ghani has outlined 3 key priorities for the unity government to ensure the success of the 12 MP in its remaining 2.5 years. The Titi Wangsa MP said one of the 3 priorities involves transitioning from blanket subsidies to targeted subsidies.
Walaupun subsidi ini membantu rakyat Malaysia dari segi mengurangkan kos hari hidup mereka, subsidi ini juga memberi kesan negatif seperti mendedahkan kepada ketirisan dalam bentuk penyeludupan dan penyalahgunaan subsidi.
Johari said this when debating the 12 MP MTR motion in the Dewan Rakyat on Tuesday. Citing an example, he stated that earlier this year, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim said the country had incurred a loss of 10 billion ringgit from diesel subsidies due to misappropriation and smuggling. He pointed out that the amount instead could have been directed to those in need. Johari also highlighted the regressive nature of blanket subsidies, saying they disproportionately benefit higher income groups. Based on data from Bank Negara Malaysia, the T20 income group receives 42% of petrol subsidies, while the B40 income group receives a mere 14%. Johari also urged the government to prioritise the efficient utilisation of funds allocated in the 2023 budget, as only 43.9 billion ringgit has been spent to date. Another area of focus for the government, he added, was food security in light of the escalating costs of food, especially rice. He said Malaysia can draw inspiration from Vietnam's remarkable success story, where the nation transitioned from being a rice importer to becoming one of the world's leading rice exporters. In the meantime, Johari has lambasted opposition leader and Larut MP Datuk Sri Hamzah Zainuddin over the latter's claim that the nation's economy recorded highest growth after 22 years in 2022 under Perikatan Nasional's administration. The Titi Wangsa MP, who is the chairman of government backbenchers, said while the growth was factually correct, Hamzah must also explain the whole picture of the nation's economic situation to avoid confusion among the people.
Malaysia hanya berkembang 3.1%. Tidak cukup untuk cover penguncupan yang berlaku pada tahun 2020. Tetapi negara Singapura berkembang 6%. Dia menguncup 4.1, dia berkembang 76%.
Johari also told the Dewan Rakyat that other statistical figures must be taken into account before alluding to PN's success of gaining the highest economic growth. He pointed out that unemployment in Malaysia rose to 4.6% in 2021 and stood at 3.4% the following year, while the country's debt rose to 1.5 trillion ringgit. Following this, the former second finance minister reminded the opposition lawmakers to not confuse the people by cherry-picking the economic figures to suit their narrative. Malaysia is continuously investing efforts and resources into alleviating poverty. Yet, there still are close to 120,000 hardcore poor households across the country. In order to support poverty eradication programs, an NGO has proposed that businesses donate a fraction of their profits to boost those efforts. A noble idea, but will it become a reality? FMT's Natasha Bust reports.
Is it too much to ask a company to donate a little bit of its profit to help end hardcore poverty? Yayasan Basmi Kemiskinan does not think so. The NGO recently proposed that corporations contribute 1% of their profits to support government programs in aid of the hardcore poor.
Orang yang dapat kekayaan daripada negara kita patut bantu. Misalnya, apa contohnya? Misalnya, syarikat yang nak masuk bawa 1 bilion, 2 bilion tu, dia mesti sign agreement kat kita, dia juga membasmi kemiskinan.
The idea sounds good on paper, but economist Nias Asadullah says getting corporate buy-in will be challenging. He says much will depend on accountability.
We have had numerous initiatives, but little hard evidence on what works and what doesn't in the Malaysian context. Citizen groups didn't have access to information on project-level performance and service quality.
Without knowing how far their donations will go, corporations may be unwilling to part ways with a portion of their profits, even if it is just 1%. But even if they did, that may not necessarily be the best way forward to help the nearly 120,000 hardcore poor families in the country.
Eliminating hardcore poverty isn't about spending another 138 million on one-off cash transfers. It's down to crafting programs that can bring about sustained change in human capabilities and behavior.
Malaysia-Australia Business Council Vice Chairman Nordin Abdullah favours a more dynamic approach to poverty eradication projects.
This should be in the context of job creation, development of local SMEs, and provisions for infrastructure. This will ensure that poverty eradication objectives are met and governance is in place. It's this ecosystem that yields real results in terms of sustainable development and poverty eradication.
Natasha Bust, FMT for Nightline.
This week on Money Matters, the Environmental Social Governance ESG framework, what trends are seen in ESG investing, how to communicate ESG efforts to gain consumer trust and loyalty, what's the ESG impact on a company's financial performance. Join us with ESG Association President Chia Kok Hung this Saturday at 5 p.m. on TV3 and live HD stream on Tonton.
Flooding in Libya leaves 2,000 people dead. News from the foreign front after this breather.
Many survivors of Morocco's earthquake were struggling in makeshift shelters on Tuesday after a fourth night outside following a powerful earthquake that killed more than 2,900 people. The death toll from the 6.8 magnitude quake that struck in the high Atlas Mountains late on Friday rose to 2,901 on Tuesday, while the number of people injured more than doubled to 5,530. The situation was most desperate for people in remote areas cut off by landslides triggered by the earthquake that blocked access roads. While in accessible locations, relief efforts were stepping up with tent camps and distribution of food and water. Since the earthquake struck, many villages have had no power or telephone network and had to rescue their loved ones by pulling out the dead bodies buried from crushed homes without any assistance. Libya on Tuesday called on countries and international organizations to provide assistance as thousands of people die after a massive flood ripped through its northeastern region following heavy storm and rain. In a televised news conference, the head of a parallel eastern-based administration, Osama Ahmad, said at least 2,000 people had been killed by the floods and thousands more were missing. According to officials, the disaster came after dams above the city of Derna had collapsed under the pressure of flooding, sweeping whole neighborhoods with their residents into the sea. It was reported that homes in valleys were washed away by strong muddy currents carrying vehicles and debris, with phone lines in the city were also down, complicating rescue efforts. After pummeling Greece last week, Storm Daniel swept in over the Mediterranean on Sunday, swamping roads and destroying buildings in Derna and hitting other settlements along the coast, including Libya's second biggest city of Benghazi. For MotoGP, Ducati rider Luca Marini set the pace in the post-race Misano test, a high-stakes outing for the series' Japanese manufacturers Honda and Yamaha. VR46 rider Marini was fastest in Monday's pot test, registering a time of 1 minute and 30.602 seconds to beat Maverick Vinales on a new Aprilia chassis and Brad Binder also on KTM's new carbon fiber chassis. However, eyes were on six-time champion Marc Marquez, who finished in 14th place, 0.973 seconds off the pace on the 2024 Honda MotoGP prototype. The Japanese manufacturers have had a difficult season, prompting talk of a Marc Marquez move away from the team he has been with since 2013. Two fishermen arrested with drugs worth over 600,000 ringgit. Don't go away.
Santai Jumat.
In Pulau Pinang, police arrested 2 fishermen in possession of drugs worth 660,000 ringgit in a raid in Penaga, Kepala Batas last Saturday. Seberang Perai Utara District Police Chief ACP Muhammad Asri Shafi said both men, aged 42 and 50, were nabbed in a car near the Kuala Bekah fishing jetty at 7 p.m. Upon inspection, police found 20 Chinese tea packages containing 20,748 kilograms of shabu, which were about to be smuggled to Indonesia via the jetty. It was believed that the 2 suspects obtained the drug supply from Kuala Lumpur and had planned to transport them using a fishing boat at night to avoid detection by authorities before handing them over to a syndicate in the neighbouring country upon reaching international waters. Police said the duo were paid 4,000 ringgit each for 1 kilogram of shabu shipment. Initial investigations found that they have been active since the beginning of the year. Both suspects have been remanded for 6 days until Friday for further investigation under the Dangerous Drugs Act. Moving on, we have some important medical advice. If you have had a head injury, it's best to see your doctor immediately. Neuroscientist Dr. Alina Arulsami says the hidden dangers of traumatic brain injury can be serious. FMT's Tivia Ragu finds out why.
Have you ever brushed off a dizzy spell or headache after a head collision? What if you were told that this could have serious consequences later in life? In fact, what you think are minor incidents could actually be traumatic brain injuries, or TBIs. Dr. Alina Arulsami, a neuroscientist and lecturer at Monash University, Malaysia, specializes in TBI research.
The impact to your head, whether it is a force that is directly on your head or even like a blast injury, can result your brain, because your brain is a gelatin-like structure. So it will shake. It will shake and it will bounce off inside the skull. And then that causes your brain to be impacted inside the skull and therefore causing an injury. So say if you're playing a sports and you go, headbutt into someone else, and you will turn. So that rotational force will basically cause your brain to also turn inside, and therefore causing your neurons in your brain to basically twist and tear. So that's how an injury happens.
Alina, who was introduced to TBI during her PhD studies in Australia, says it gets even more complicated from here. While moderate and severe TBIs typically result in loss of consciousness, with individuals often being immediately hospitalized, mild TBI can be sneakier.
For mild TBI, you don't get that same kind of symptoms. So at most, you get maybe, you feel a little lightheaded, or you lose maybe a very temporary loss of consciousness, maybe for about a few minutes. So a lot of people, what they do is, they just think, oh, I just sleep it off, and it'll be fine.
And according to Alina, that's the biggest problem.
Even a mild TBI can often lead to long-term impairments, maybe not as serious as the ones you see in moderate to severe, but with time, with aging, there are microscopic damage in the brain that cannot be picked up even by CT scans.
Research worldwide has shown that mild TBI is associated with an increased risk of developing several life-altering conditions such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, speech problems, or even personality changes. Alina shared that Malaysians in particular need to be cautious since one of the major reasons for TBI is road accidents. Sadly, to date, there is no cure to mitigate the long-term impairments of TBI. While Alina's lab and others worldwide continue to study the mechanisms of TBI to potentially develop screening methods and a miracle drug for impairments like Alzheimer's, for now, she urges the public to always seek medical help. And as the pandemic has taught us all, scientific research is the key towards a brighter and healthier future for all. Tivia Ragu, FMT Lifestyle for Nightline.
Today, Nightline lost one of its family members. He was a friend, a teacher, and a brother to many of us. We would like to express our deepest condolences to the family of Muhammad Zaman Goh Abdullah, or for us, Raymond Goh. Al-Fatiha. I'm Muhammad Hamdan.